Hello everyone, my name is Mary from Athena's Bibliotheca, and I have my journal out, which means that it's time for January's wrap-up. I have quite a few pictures, kind of thick. I was able to read 9 books in January, so we have a little bit to talk about, but I'm excited to get started. Let's open the journal. Also, we're starting a new year in the journal, and I was going to do something fancy to separate the years, but I'm not gonna. I couldn't think of anything that I liked the idea enough to do. I'm just going to put the 2024 on the January like I did in the beginning. So I just put 2023 on the 1st January, which is not really that unique, but that's what I'm doing. Nothing too crazy. So the first thing we have to do is the January cover page, and the character that I decided to base my January cover page on is Emma Swan from Once Upon a Time. I really enjoy Once Upon a Time. I haven't finished it, but I really enjoy it, and I really like Emma Swan, so I was like, oh, I could do an Emma Swan cover page. So that is what I've chosen. So I'm going to go put this cover page before we start talking about the first book I read in January. So that is the cover page for January. I really like how it turned out, so that's good. This is the first one in the year. The first book that I read in January was The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Cowrie. I actually have a vlog that I read this in, so I'll link it in the corner for you if you want to read it or if you want to watch it. I actually really enjoyed this story. It is based around the Aladdin story, and it was such a good retelling. I think that I really enjoy an Aladdin retelling. This is only the second one I've read, and I read an Aladdin retelling last year and really enjoyed it, and I read one this year and really enjoyed it. It makes me wish that there was more retellings of Aladdin, not gonna lie, because I really did enjoy it. And the story is based from the genie's perspective, so you get a lot of background on the genie and the genie's magic, and I just really enjoyed that bit of information. Like, I liked learning about the magic the genies have in like their hierarchies and stuff. I just thought that was really interesting. And of course you have Aladdin, and I love him. He's great. Obviously, I enjoy it. I liked it, which was good because it was the first book I read in the year, so that's fun. These are the pictures I chose to use for it. Now let's get started on making the spread for the Forbidden Wish. There's the finished spread for the Forbidden Wish. So I think that turned out really nice. I'm happy with it, so. The next book I read was Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is also another book I read in the same vlog with The Forbidden Wish, and I really liked Heartless. I mean, no surprise to most people on the internet because everyone loves Heartless. I'm not sure if I like it as much as everyone else seems to, but I did enjoy myself while I was reading it. Every interaction between Willa and Luke was so cute and adorable, and I loved them. And her and Cade were also just sweet. That was Heartless, and these are the pictures that I chose. So let's get started making the spread. So there's Heartless, and the next book I read was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And this book was so fun. Okay, so at the start, it was a little slow to get into for me, but once I did get into it, I was all in. It was such a fun read, and I really enjoyed learning about the magic system and how the cards that are in this book work. That ending was painful. I really need to get the next book in the series so I can read it. These are the photos I chose to use. Now let's get started making the spread. So this one's complete, and I just think it's funny that this is like all bright and cute and adorable, and this is like darkness and mustard. And I just think that's funny that they're both on the same page spread, like 2-page spread. Okay, go to the next book I read was Hench by Natalie Zena Walshatz. This story was another fun time. I really enjoyed figuring out how this world worked. There was some slow parts in this story for me, but overall, I was always curious about what the main character was going to do next, because I was never quite sure. I am curious about the sequel, and I think she deserves to be the big bad villain, like the top one. So if that doesn't happen by the end of the series, I'm going to be disappointed. So these are the pictures I chose for this spread. So let's get putting it together. So that spread is done. Whoop whoop. And now we go on to the next book I read, which was Emily Wilde's Map with Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. And I think I enjoyed this one even more than I enjoyed the first one. So, and these are the pictures I chose. So let's get making the spread. Now these spreads are complete and we can go on to the next book. The next book I read was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Rayborn. I would really like to say that I loved this book, but I didn't love it. I think I still enjoyed it for the most part, but a lot of the characters, or specifically the main character, frustrated me a lot, which kind of dampened my enjoyment of the series, or of this specific book. I might be able to be convinced to give the sequel a try, but I don't make any promises on that end. This book just really makes me sad because I really, really wanted to love it and I just don't. I'm sorry to everyone who does enjoy this. I wish I was you, but I'm not. I do think I picked some pretty good pictures for this spread though. Now let's get putting them together. Putting it together. So that is the spread for Curious Beginning. And the next book I read is my favorite book of the month, and that is Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. This book is a masterpiece, and I have no complaints. Like, I love this story so much. And also, another book with a killer ending, so that's nice for myself and for everyone else who's already read this and had to wait way longer than me for the sequel. But this story is so good and I love it so very, very much. So I'll show you the pictures I chose for it and we'll get started with the spread. So that is the spread for these two books. The next book I read was The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. And this is one of the books for an Amazon series of short stories of, I think it's called Improbable Meet Cutes. They're very short stories, but they are really adorable. So I read this one, and the next book I read was also in the series, and so far they're so good. So far so good. This first one was a little like the first half of the story is through emails, and I liked the idea of it, but when you got to the second half of the story where the romance portion actually comes up, it kind of felt like it was a little forced, maybe. Maybe it felt like the romance happened quick. Maybe is the problem. I I did enjoy myself though, and I had a fun time. Also, my first Christina Lauren, so that's interesting. Here's the pictures I chose for it. So let's set up the spread. And that spread is complete. After this book, I read the second book in this series called Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. And this one I loved so very much. It was so adorable and I loved every little instance of this story. I mean, like, there were sad parts, there were funny parts. It just was adorable and I loved it. So this one was definitely my favorite of the two that I've read so far in this series. I definitely want to continue eventually whenever I get the chance to. Plus, they're really quick and easy book reads. They're like 100 pages or less mostly, so. Oh, first let me show you the pictures that I chose. And now let's make the final spread. So that is my final spread, and if you ignore how crooked this picture is up here, it looks really good. So that is all the books that I read in January. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you next week, but I make no promises. Bye!